Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Life Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Russell Reynolds, and we got a good show tonight coming to you live from a Sunday night. I know it's a little off. We usually do Saturdays, but we were at Crypticon all weekend, hanging out with some horror movie actors and some friends and stuff. So we decided to do a show tonight, and we got a great guest tonight. Um, his daughter's running a little late, but she will be on. We were at the Get Haunted event book signing with him last weekend and got to investigate with him. And he spent 8 weeks in Missouri State Penitentiary writing a book called These Walls Still Talk from his experience from last year's event with the Devil on the Run tour and Get Haunted. So without further ado, we're not going to keep him backstage. Let's bring him on. Brian Paone, author of These Walls Still Talk.
Hey, I'm super glad you said my last name right.
Everybody gets that wrong.
I'd say at least 60% of the time. Yeah, they say they drop the E sound at the end and they say Paone. So I always have to be like,
I
I
heard
don't correct anybody. I don't ever correct anybody like live, like on the podcast, because that, you know what I mean. Like I just let it go because that's
right.
I'm not a douche, right? But whenever somebody says it correctly, I'm always like, yes, I got it at that time.
Yeah, I've heard Rob say it enough, so.
Oh yeah. He talks about me, huh? What's he say? Huh?
Oh, all good things from what I hear.
He paid you to say that.
No, he didn't pay me nothing.
Oh
If
look,
if he did, I wouldn't accept it.
yeah.
So, tell my audience a little bit about yourselves, the ones that didn't go to Missouri State with you and investigate with us.
Yeah, me in a nutshell. I guess I could do Austin Powers and be like, how did I get in this nutshell? But me in a nutshell is I've been a published author since 2007, so 18 years this year. I have 12 published novels, and I went to MSP on a ghost hunt, a ghost investigation that had nothing to do with being an author whatsoever. And Get Haunted and Nesper were there that night. It was last June. And my author brain kicked into overdrive, and I was like, holy crap, there's a book here. Didn't know what it was yet. There was no storyline or characters or anything other than, I started thinking as an author, I'm always kind of looking for the stories within everyday incidences, right? And trying to turn it into a book. And I was thinking to myself that we have so many movies and we have so many books where a house is haunted, right? Or a place is haunted, and the owners call the ghost investigators to come in. And then the ghost investigators solve the mystery, right? And they solve what's going on. You think all the way back to Poltergeist or even The Exorcist or the Insidious movies or the Conjuring universe. There's always the people who live there or own it. Bad things are happening, and then they make a phone call, and then they bring in the experts. But I was like, what if I write a book where this crap happens to the experts? Right, the experts are the people going, holy crap, we don't know what's going on here, right? And I said that's kind of what started the whole idea. At the time, I had already submitted my next novel idea to my editor. She had approved it. I had already was working on an outline. My next book was going to be this neo-noir, Dark City meets Silence of the Lambs type, think of The Crow, Blade Runner-y type setting. And I was emailed her and I was like, I think I got something else. We're going to put this on the back burner. I thought, what if during one of these ghost hunts, these public ghost hunts, right, that's open to the public, what if it just goes south? Just bad, it just goes to crap, on two of the guests, my main characters, right? So, and then the wheels started turning, and next thing you know, I reached out to the staff who I became first friends with, and then now I feel like I'm family. And I wrote the entire book over the span of 8 weeks inside MSP. Most of the time alone in the dark at night, So and that's what happened. And the rule was I wasn't allowed to be on the property unless there was workers there, right? I can't be there by myself. But there was a lot of times that I was there when tours or ghost hunts weren't happening, and just one or two staff members were on the property, and I would just go off and write. I had full access to A Hall and 1 and 3. And, there would be times where I'd grab my laptop, I'd go sit in a cell, and I wouldn't see another human for 3 hours,
Right.
So that added to the experience, especially writing in the location where the book took place. Right. So, I wasn't writing, a book about a ghost hunt gone wrong in a prison and then sitting like on a bench in a graveyard somewhere. Right. I mean, I was in that buildings where it was taking place. So, someone made a comment, I forget who, about a couple months ago, and they said, when actors don't get out of character, they method act. They're like, you method wrote. Do you realize you're probably one of the first instances of method writing, So, and then I had to come up with an actual storyline. I had to do author stuff then. I had to take this idea and then go, well, what the crap is the plot? Who are my characters? Why are they there? What actually goes wrong? Why is it going wrong? Right? I got to make a reason for it to go wrong. You can't just have it go wrong because, Saturn is in the house of Aquarius and everything goes crazy. Like, I had to have some sort of device, right? As a writer. So I had to work through all of that. And I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. It's been out now a week yesterday. The audiobooks accidentally came out 2 weeks early through Amazon and Audible. That was beyond mine or my publishing company's control. They actually breached that contract. So a lot of people went and grabbed the audiobook. So when we had the event Saturday, a good amount of people who were there had listened to it, but hadn't read they didn't have the physical book, right? But they had listened to it. So a lot of people who had already, quote unquote, read the whole book. And one thing that was interesting was Bill from Get Haunted, Bill from Empty Casket and all that. He listened to the book on the drive there, and he'd never been to MSP in his life. So he said it was an interesting experience to listen to the book, finish the book during the drive, then see the buildings and go, oh, that's where that happens to Hannah, and that's where that happens to Parker, and that's what happens to that cell there. Oh, I saw cell 43. I remember that from the book, right? And then he listened to the book a second time on the ride home after spending a weekend at MSP, and then he was like, it's a totally different experience reading the book after you've been there, because you know every nook and cranny. You know what 3D looks like. You know what the gas chamber looks like. You know what the dungeon looks like. So when he revisited those parts, he just thought it created a different experience, So that was kind of neat to get feedback from him on both ends, So the reviews are coming in. So far, the worst review that I've gotten on any website has been 3 stars, but they didn't give a reason why. They just kind of clicked the 3-star thing.
Oh yeah.
So I pretty much over the last 8 days have had nothing but 5 stars in this 1 3-star, and awesome. So far, I guess people like it, I mean, or they're just, I don't know, scared to not like it. I don't know. Maybe Rob's paying them. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But, so.
Damien had a question for you. He says, may I ask Brian, now you got DeLorean, can we see you get General Lee next?
No. Nope. The DeLorean, that is it. The DeLorean is the DeLorean. Yeah, there won't be, there's no other movie cars in my future. I'm happy with my DeLorean. That's my baby. I would feel like I was cheating on her.
Right.
No, honest to God, so.
Then he asked, would you ever consider writing a book from a haunted location, but allowing the guests to write the next page in between the pages you write, and kind of make a story where yourself have no idea where it will go?
So I think I understand, what he's meaning. Kind of let guests who are staying there dictate, where it goes, like kind of let them write some scenes. That would be a logistical nightmare. Like it would be an absolute logistical nightmare. I wouldn't even know how we would edit something like that. It would just,
Right.
I don't think my brain could handle that. It sounds fun on the surface.
Right.
Although if we wanted to do like, do you remember the choose your own adventure books?
Mhm.
I guess we could do that where each guest was in charge of like the second part of where you chose to go. Right. So I guess we could do something like that, but don't put ideas in my head, man, because that's what happens. And then I start thinking and I go, yeah, we could do that.
One thing with Damien, he's always full of questions and ideas.
I know. I love Damien. I swear to God, I feel like there's like four of him
Yeah.
because I don't know how one man can be on every podcast. I love it. It's just like,
I
it's not
think
a podcast unless Damien shows up.
I think it's the Red Bull
Is
that
how it
helps.
is.
Yeah, I think it's the Red Bull.
Oh man, yeah. So no, I love Damien's questions. He's fantastic. So Hannah, you can review the book, Amazon, Goodreads. If it's the audio book, Audible. I think iTunes. Yeah, it's just this is wherever you can review. I think Barnes and Nobles allow reviews. Books a Million allows reviews. There's been reviews posted on to my website on it. So, and the more reviews, the better. So I don't know if you guys know. So I'm going to give you guys a little insight into how the author world works with Amazon. Amazon, if you ever looked up something and then they suggest things for you,
Mhm.
right? It's like, so you kind of have a row where they're suggesting things. They have two rows of those sometimes, right? One is because people paid to be there. Like I can run an ad where my book is there because I'm paying them money to make sure that my book is in that list. The other list, Amazon creates, and they don't do it by sales. They do it by number of reviews. So a book that sold 1 million copies, but only has 2 reviews won't be on that list as somebody who sold 10 copies and has 10 reviews. They actually do it by, Amazon works on it by reviews, which is very interesting. So I implore people that if you've read any of my books, a review on Amazon is worth its weight in gold to us authors because Amazon takes those and as weight. Like YouTube and TikTok, they always look at like likes and
Yeah.
subscribers and they weigh it that way. So Amazon does the same thing, but they do it with reviews. So the more people review my book, even if you hate it, I'm not telling everybody to give me a good review. I'm telling everyone to give me an honest review, but they take number of reviews into consideration of what books they push to the top.
Right.
So,
And I mean, especially you sitting in Missouri State, if nobody's been there, that prison can get to you psychologically because there's a lot of different things and different energies that flow through that place. Like this is our third time going, and it was something different this time. I mean, there was a lot of personal stuff that happened to people, like Hero.
yeah, Hero was, like the joke was like he cried, I cried, the ghost cried. I mean, that was pretty intense. Like I'm like stupidly emotional person anyway, but when he started crying, I started crying and like it
Right.
affected me. Like we walked out and I just, that was something, I mean,
Yep.
whether or not, I don't know, like even if you're a skeptic, right? Even if you don't believe in any of this and you think it's all gobbledygook and you are hard skeptic, no, no, no. Even if you didn't think what happened to him was real, even though we all heard the EVP, the look on his face was enough, right? The look on his face to be because he came in as a skeptic and he told us when we were down in the dungeon, he was very honest with Rob, and me. And he said, I'm a skeptic, even though I've seen things I can't explain tonight. I still am a skeptic. The only thing that will change my mind is if I hear my mother's name or my mother's nickname, right? That she died 4 years ago and nobody in this room would ever know it.
Right.
And we left and went into a cell. So he knew he was the only one in the hallway. And when it said his mother's name, like on that EVP, that was wild. I just, that was crazy. That was absolutely crazy.
We had one in the female section with Joe in my group there was a man coming through, and it was one of the guy in the group's brother, and he was communicating through the human pendulum and then through the dowsing rods.
Yeah. Yeah, was Hannah doing that dowsing rod
Yeah,
or was somebody else? Yeah.
yeah, Anna was doing the dowsing rods, and that guy that his brother come through, him and I were the front and back of the human pendulum, and Ashley, my friend Ashley, was in the middle, and she was rocking back and forth. It was answering us through that and the dowsing rods,
Mhm.
and it was his brother coming through, and he had a message for his brother because his brother just passed away recently.
Yeah, so I've never done the dowsing rods. I've never experienced them. I've never used them. I've never been around them when they were used. I was in the dungeon with Rob through all 4 rotations. That was my post. So I didn't get to, be with Hannah when she was doing the dowsing rods. But my daughter Analise, who was there all night, and she was filming
Yep.
because she filmed all night, and then she's going to compile the footage and whittle it down to about 45 minutes to an hour or so, and then she's going to make a documentary about the weekend that Fright Reads Book Festival in Maryland is going to screen, is going to premiere for her, like on the big screen, September 13th. And Get Haunted's going to be there. I'll be there. The DeLorean will be there. And also she's scheduled to come on the show in about 10 minutes, I believe. I think we're going to bring her in about 10 minutes. But my brother, her uncle, passed away in 2019, and she believes that he had made contact with her through the dowsing rods
Yeah,
during the
he
session.
ac he actually did.
And that was and my brother Paul, I love all my siblings, but for different reasons, right? And my brother Paul, I would say I'm one of 5, so I have 4 siblings. And I still consider him a sibling, even though he's passed, right? So I have 4 siblings. But of all of my 4 siblings, he was the one that really shaped and molded, I think, the things that I'm into today, right? He was my big brother. So the music that I listen to is definitely influenced by him. I think just the way I thought about things, like he was kind of like he was like the big bro in the true sense of like having a big bro.
Right.
So it was really hard when I lost him. And he was really close with Analise. We actually lived with him for a bit when we were moving to Japan. We had like a gap in time where we lived with him. And he got married after Annalise was born. So, she was alive during his wedding. And at his wedding, she read a poem, after like the best man did the speech, she read a poem like this. So that's how close they were, right? As
Mhm.
uncle and niece. So when he came through in those dowsing rods, that just meant so much to her. She couldn't wait to tell me because I wasn't there. I was in the dungeon, and she was with you guys
Yep.
and Hannah doing the dowsing rods. And then for her to come to me and be like, Uncle Paul was talking to me, like it had to have been him. Like there's no way it was anybody else. So I love that for her. I would have loved to have talked to him, but I love that for her.
Yeah. Yeah,
That son of a
he came
bitch.
through. He only came through for a little bit, and then he faded away, and then we had a female inmate come in because for some reason she did not like Joe or myself up there. I guess we
Mhm.
resembled a guards or something to her, and she was pushing him and I out of the conversation. First
That's
it was
interesting.
Joe, and then I asked, "Is there any other men you don't like here?" And the dowsing rods pointed at me, and I was like, "Ah, figures, me."
Yeah, right.
And I said to Joe, "See, the last time we were there with Nesper and we were up there with Candy, we were communicating with a woman up there who was having an affair with one of the guards. And he threatened if she said anything and he lost his job, he would kill her and make it look like an accident. And apparently he got her pregnant and she couldn't take it anymore and she dove off the rail off the catwalk up there.
I feel like
Or
I should teach the ghosts how to use the writing program that I use and just let them write books. Right? Just like leave a laptop in one of the cells and be like, go ahead, guys. I'm going to come back tomorrow and see what you've written.
well, now they got that like my buddy KD from Supernatural Inc. uses. He does a runs his spirit box into an AI talk to text app, and it types it out.
Oh, so we could publish the ramblings of spirits. We could actually call it, you know how they have like magnetic poetry? I don't know if
Yep,
you know that, like, right? We could do like magnetic ramblings of spirits. So we could sell it, right? But it would be magnets, and you could have it on your fridge, and then you can move around like what the spirits say and have
yep,
it make different sentences and stuff.
yep.
We're onto something. I think we need to talk after the show, and we need to
Yeah,
market something
definitely.
like that.
Let's do it. Yeah, I'm Damien asked, "Would you ever put a working Ouija board into the inside cover of the books, or is this considered step too far with paranormal stories?"
All right. So here's the thing. When it comes to books, everything to do with the artwork, the formatting, the stylization, the design has to have something to do with the content of the book. It has to do something with the plot, right? So to answer that question, no, I would never, unless one of my books happens to involve a Ouija board, right? So if one of my books happened to involve a Ouija board for whatever reason, I would absolutely be open to that. And my graphic designer, you met her. Well, she was there, Russell, Amy, the woman who did all the artwork for
Okay,
the book.
yeah, I did meet her.
She was there. She left after the rotations. But you know, that would be something that I would talk to her about, because that would be an Amy thing, not a Brian thing, to design that. But if it works, yeah, why not? That would be. I mean, I could even sell what are they called? Planchettes? What are the things called?
Yeah, planchette.
Am I right? Okay, man, I took a shot in the dark there. Seriously, woo! My face would have been red. I mean, we could even like tape them to the back cover or something, right? Oh no, you know what? So on the inside cover would be the Ouija. Thanks, Damien. Now you got my marketing brain going haywire. So inside the cover is the Ouija board, but then the next page is like a cardboard of a planchette, but you like pop it out,
Mhm.
right? And then you use that as opposed to having like a plastic one, because that would be bulky. That would make like a lump, right?
Yep.
If you had them stacked. But if you actually had like a pop out planchette with a inside cover is the Ouija board. Damn it! This is how This is how I start. This is how more books happen. As I just start thinking about crap like that.
Wade said oftentimes the spirit will manipulate energies to create an emotional response, and it will feed off of that energy. It can be a vicious cycle.
An emotional response. Yeah, I think you know, I don't know, maybe I don't, but I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like any of the stuff that we were getting, at least at the book release party. If you talk about like Hero's thing with his mom, and then you think about like my daughter with Analise, you know, with my brother getting in touch with her, I feel like none of it felt vicious, right? Or none of it felt.
No, it didn't. Even with that guy up there in the female wing, it didn't feel vicious at all with him either.
And you know, we're still debating whether or not Annalise saw Big Boy down in the dungeon when she saw the huge shadow figure come down the hallway, when she like panicked and
Mhm.
like, and I mean that was the only time that she and Annalise was there all weekend with me. I mean, we flew in on Thursday and we spent a good amount of time Friday at an MSP. She was alone in a hall for like 2 hours setting up cameras and stuff like that. And of the entire weekend, that was the only time that something scared her, was when that huge shadow came down the hallway at her.
Oh, wow, they're making a new case for the shadow doll this weekend.
Like double glass, like triple glass. I have a selfie. I'll never forget. Wade, I know you can't like talk back, but you can type. How I met Wade was I wanted a selfie with the shadow doll, and he was reluctant, but he did it anyway. Like he took
Oh,
my
yeah.
And then he goes, as he's taking the photo, Wade goes, "Oh, she's very mad right now. She doesn't like this at all." And I was like, "Okay." Let's start doing this.
Oh, yeah, she was angry. I mean, when we went down to the dungeon, did Estes down there with Dan and Chris and them, they were picking up on those objects upstairs, and then cell number 20, and then when we were on free roam, we went down there, the same cell, the in your face cell.
Yeah, I love cell 20. It's that and you're the cell 20. if you've read the book, anybody's read the book, this isn't a spoiler because this isn't a part in the novel, in the storyline part. But you know how I kept a diary of everything that happened to me while I was writing? I had so many things happen to me in Cell 20 while I was writing, and it's all in my diary at the end of the book. Now, Cell 20 doesn't make an appearance in the novel, like in the storyline, because it had no place there. Like I would be shoehorning it in, and I
Right.
refused to shoehorn things in just to be there. But I wrote in that room, in that cell, so often. I had things happen, and in the back of the book, there's pictures, there's photographs of me and all the cast of characters, and me writing in different places. And one of the photos of me is me sitting in that barber chair writing, and I kept going back to it because Wade told me to go write in there. And when I did, it was just, I don't know how to describe when you feel that when you feel like it's alive, right? Like it's like the cell felt just energized all the time. And I saw one of the 2 times that I saw the creeper at MSP during those whole 8 weeks was in that cell 20. It was 3 of us in the cell, and we all saw it at the same time. And that whole story is in my diary part of the book.
Yeah, we went down to cell 20 down there, and my friend Linda got touched down there.
Yeah, so that's how it happened. We were actually in there with the uniformed police officer, Jefferson City police officer in full uniform on duty as a security, got touched on the leg. And when we all, yeah, and I mean, I go into it in my diary. If you want to know the whole story, you're going to buy the book. But that's how it started, with her being touched on the leg. And sure enough, it's, after a little bit of back and forth, it scampered away. And we all were just like, I closed my laptop. It's like, and we're done in here. I just walked out.
That's probably why she didn't come back last week.
Yeah, I know, right? No. Oh, Hannah, no. So the scavenger hunt, I think, just kind of went by the wayside. It was a good idea in theory.
Well, I found 4 of them.
Yeah, so people were finding them, and they were telling me, they were like, "Oh yeah, I found, like a couple of these," but I just don't think people, after we were done with the rotation, we went on free roam. Yeah, in theory, it was a good idea. I don't think I implemented it well, and maybe I should have done less pictures. Maybe I should have only done like 5 as opposed to 17. Made it a little bit easier, right? It was people could, you know what I mean? I had grandiose ideas for the scavenger hunt and fell a little flat, but I take the hit on that one. That's fine.
Well, the first one I found was Sarah, actually.
Sarah? So you must have been in then 3 because I hid her in Death Row.
Yep.
Yeah, I knew I had them all memorized where they all were. I knew where all 17 were, but yeah, Sarah was in Death Row.
That upper cell that you said, oh, there may be one, may not be one up there. I didn't find it.
Cell 115. That was the highest you had to go to find one. And that was actually me and Hannah, because that's the cell that has a huge implication in the novel. So I figured I'd put her in that one. So you had to go all the way up to 4 Walk.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't go up to 4. But I also scared Joe and Dom. They were sitting there in 4, just sitting in the chair relaxing. And I come walking out of cell 20. All they see is this black figure come.
That was you? So yeah. Have you ever heard the story? Actually, so Damien asked a good question. I do want to answer that. Yes, I'm going to answer that, but I do want to piggyback on what you just said, because I've told this story a couple of times and people always think it's funny. There was one night when I was writing in cell 43 in A-Hall, and if you've ever sat in a dark room with a laptop open, anything past that light actually makes the room darker because your eyes are focusing on the light, right? Yep. Well, it was a ghost hunt. It was an active free roam ghost hunt, and I was sitting in cell 43 and I was writing. I had no idea that this woman had walked in. She made no noise. She didn't give me an indication that she was in there. There was no ambient light from her phone. She didn't have any apps on. No idea that there was a human in the room with me. I also had no idea that she was standing over me looking down at me. And she goes, "So how's it going?" And I screamed. I flipped the laptop. Duncan, who was there at the event, he was one of the MSP tour guides, heard me scream. I hear him start laughing, and he told me later that they heard me scream in Housing Unit 3.
Oh, wow.
I screamed that loud when that lady startled me. Yeah. So sometimes the humans are just as terrifying as the spirits. So Damien, I'm going to show you something. Yes, I have the same laptop. This is my writing laptop, and I've collected through the last year all of these stickers on its case. So I've got a bunch of Get Haunted stuff. Is that inverted? Is that all backwards?
Yeah.
Uh,
No, actually, I see it.
so I got like a Stephen King sticker. I got a Rob. I got the Penitentiary. I got some ghost stuff, haunted house stuff, witchy stuff. There's Xavier. We all love Xavier. There's that dark chick. She does the emotional support voodoo dolls. My friend Marissa gave me. She writes a children's book, so she thought the juxtaposition of putting this character on my laptop would be hysterical. So yeah, so people have just Reese. So Reese from MSP, one of the tour guides, gave
Mhm.
me when I was there writing. This was empty. There was nothing on this. This was completely clean. And she came in one day and gave me the ghost sitting on the book sticker. So this was the only sticker I had on it for a while, and then people just started giving me stickers to put on my laptop. So, but this is my writing laptop. So I really appreciate the decorating it. It means a lot because all those stickers came from somebody who thought enough to give me a sticker to put on my writing laptop. So that's
And
sweet.
especially it was good too with that children's sticker on there because there was children born in MSP and the female housing unit.
Mhm. Yeah, so that'll be the laptop I'll be writing the Ditto House, Get Haunted Tale Book 2 book at. So,
Anna has a sticker for the remaining blank space.
mhm. Yep, yep. Would I ever auction the laptop? I would auction off the case with all the stickers on it and then just start over. Dude, that's my laptop, man. Like all my writing programs are in that. Stop trying to sell my stuff, Damien.
Well, he said
So
how he gets on all different podcasts. He's got like 5 PCs open.
yeah. All right. Well, I mean, if Hannah has a sticker for me for the remaining space, I guess I guess I'll take it. Fine.
But did your daughter tell you my dad actually spotted shadow figures going in and out of the cell when we started off with Bill in death row? She headed down that way to try to get it on film.
So you were seeing shadow figures in 3?
Yep.
So I've never seen any shadow figures in 3. All of my peakers I see in A Hall. That's where I see them all. But everybody has different experiences, right? Like everybody has a different story. Everybody sees things differently. So just because you do doesn't mean I will, and just because I do doesn't mean you will, right? But I find that housing unit 3 as a whole is dead for that's a really bad pun. Housing unit 3 is really quiet for me, except for 3D. When I
Mhm.
go down those stairs, I feel like I'm entering like the mouth of the beast. So the dungeon and 3D are the only 2 places I won't go by myself because I'm terrified down there, right? And so I think of 3D as its own animal, but the rest of 3, like Death Row and then the housing unit side,
Yep.
I've never had anything happen to me. I've never felt anything. I've never seen anything. I've never, I still love it. I still walk around and I spent a lot of time writing in it, but I don't. I feel like 3D is super active, and then the rest of the building just hates me. So,
Yeah, for us, it's all over that building. We stir up all kinds of stuff in that building. I know when we split up on 3, Bill split us all up. My dad, Ashley, and Linda all went with me. We went on the other side, and they kept seeing a shadow. I laid down in the one first cell, and you could feel like I didn't belong there.
yeah,
And they kept watching a shadow down at the doorway down there. And so they went down towards there, and we come walking through the door. First, Ashley come walking through, and something touched her on the head and then the arm. I felt like cobwebs, and then I come shortly behind her, and something touched me on my right arm that felt like cobwebs, and looked all over the place, tried to debunk it, figuring we walked through webs. And so I talked with Sheila, and Sheila says, "No, I had inmates in there a week ago cleaning that whole cell block, so there's no cobwebs anywhere."
interesting. Yeah.
And that was the only time that ever happened.
I also the other thing too is you got to remember, like at the end of the day, I was in there to write a book. right? I wasn't in there to ghost hunt. I wasn't in there to join ghost tours. I wasn't in there to, shoot the shit with the staff, which I did, but that's not why I was there. So I don't think people understand how many hours I was staring at a computer screen. Yes, I was in the buildings, and yes, I was sitting in cells, and I even, about 2 weeks into the 8 weeks, I made myself a writing desk in a hall, and I spent a lot of time writing there. So even though I was inside these buildings, I don't think people realize that I was writing a book, right? So I wasn't.
Yeah, you weren't focused on anything
Yeah,
else.
I wasn't. So if I heard something, I would look up. If something felt weird, I would look up. But I wasn't just sitting there and the book was writing itself and I was investigating ghosts. And because of that, because I was I won't do the dungeon of 3D by myself. I used to tell guests during free roam that, hey, if you're going to the dungeon or you're going to 3D and you see me, grab me and I'll go down with you and I'll just write because I won't go down by myself. So as long as I know somebody else is down there, I'm okay. So, through the 8 weeks, I had a multitude of guests who would find me and be like, hey, author dude, hey, we're going down to the dungeon. I'd be like, I'm coming. Because if I had the opportunity, I'd go because I would never go by myself. So my time down there was so much smaller. And I was down there and I witnessed things happen to some guests who were complete strangers to me. I was just there writing, and I watched a woman's ponytail get pulled so hard that her ear bent down to her shoulder. Again, she screamed. I peed myself, closed my laptop. I didn't even hit save. I closed my laptop and we ran. I mean, that's how scary that was, right? So, I've experienced stuff down there while writing, but for the most part, I was staring at that screen, just trying to take in the atmosphere, But I'll tell you, there's nothing like sitting in a hall at 11 p.m. and for a fact there isn't a single human being in that building because that all the staff and all the guests are in the lobby getting their safety brief by Jenny or Lisa or Reese or Dano, and you're alone in that building, and they've gone lights out, right? And there's no moon, and you start hearing dragging sounds from the dungeon. Shit you not, that happened twice, where it sounded like someone was dragging like a footlocker right? So there was like a drag, and then the step, and then like the drag, and then the step. And that's, if you haven't ever experienced that, that's scary as crap. Because, that's something you can't make up, right? And I knew that every single guest was in the lobby. I knew they were getting their safety brief, no staff members, so those moments were terrifying where I would look up from my laptop. And again, because the screen is so bright, everything beyond it was black. I would tilt my screen down and go, hello? Hello? So. But
Your daughter's here, so we're going to bring her on too.
Let's bring it on, Analise. Yay!
Hey, welcome to the show.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you great. Awesome.
I know you've got to run. You can't stay on for very long. So.
Oh, no, I'm good now.
Oh, you're good? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good now.
Awesome. So you can stay with us the whole night. We're just talking about the experiences we had.
Yeah.
especially for you because you were in my group with us, so you got.
Yeah, so I was tagging along the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about the dowsing rods and Uncle Paul coming through, and we touched a little bit about on the dungeon. How scary it got down there, but then I didn't want to talk too much because that was kind of your story, not mine.
Oh, the dungeon was a different story. I'm gonna confidently be saying I'm never going to dungeon again.
Oh, come on!
Alone, definitely, but with people, I don't know if I'll ever go in there again, even with people. That was like really scary for me.
Yeah. That light was actually interesting. I mean, this was my third time being there. I've investigated the dungeon plenty of times.
Yeah.
And seeing
I don't know where that light came from.
We can't explain it either. It was like somebody just turned on a flashlight. That's why we thought at first it was a flashlight, and then we could see you and your dad hugging each other. So we knew it didn't come from you at all, and nobody else turned the light on. It didn't even come from Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, me and my dad didn't see it because it was behind us, apparently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
was exactly right behind you guys, but just before that
that's.
happened, when
I
your
said
leg
I felt something right behind me too the whole time. I kept telling my dad, I'm like, I feel like something's like right behind me, you know.
but right when you got your leg touched, there was a shadow standing in front of me right next to you.
Oh, that's
I
creepy.
saw it.
Yeah. No, because I leaned over to my dad and I'm like, Papa, there's someone right behind me. And I'm like, is there someone like right next to me, like on my left side? And then someone said, hey, there's like a face over there as soon as I like told him that I felt like someone was standing right behind one of my sides. Um,
The
yeah.
thing is that like nobody could have been standing because we were
Against the wall, yeah.
a
Yeah, you
wall.
guys were against the
There was
wall.
nowhere for a human to go without anybody knowing, right? There's no way. I mean, logistically, that's impossible.
Yeah.
And then for everybody to see it, was except for us. I was terrified. I wasn't gonna turn around.
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever was in that cell kind of liked me a little bit because when we were down there earlier, Bill had told me, he was like, Annalise, like, there's a face right behind you. And I was standing right in front of that cell. So whatever was over there, I think it took a liking to me because it was messing with me every time I went down there.
Yeah. I think it was good too that like you took the camera and you went on the rotation.
Yes.
As opposed to you just being like, oh, we're gonna put Annalise like in 3D for the night, right?
Yeah.
You
I
got to,
I
yeah,
got a little bit of everything. Because again, the documentary isn't really about trying to capture ghost stuff. It's about trying to share the experience and what goes on in one of MSP's ghost hunts. You know, it's more about that, like the experience that you're getting when you go, not really trying to catch like stuff happening with the paranormal. So
yeah,
I'm glad that I was able to go in a rotation.
yeah. And I think there is so many channels and YouTube creators who that's their whole thing is they go in to try to catch the ghost on
Yeah.
camera. And I think it was cool that your vision was no, I'm going to show what like a get haunted event at MSP looks like.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the book, the first half of the book, so two people have said this to me now that they felt like the book was like Full Metal Jacket. If anyone ever seen the movie Full Metal Jacket, like the first half of the movie is the boot camp, right? And then the second half of the movie is the war. It literally could be two separate movies. You could pause after boot camp and
Exactly.
you're good. Or you could start the movie at the war and you're good, right? I mean that it's split up so definitively. So my book, These Walls Still Talk, is very much like Full Metal Jacket, where the first half of the book is the rotations, and the second half of the book is the free roam. Just like you would if you went to a Get Haunted event, right? You
Yeah.
do the rotations, then you
Yep.
do the free roam. So I think it's kind of neat that like Annalise's vision for this documentary was, well, let's show these rotations. Like I'm gonna
Yeah,
walk.
my focus was more on the rotations and the free roam. I kind of put my camera away once it was time for free roam because my whole thing was just like the rotations and like how each person at each station kind of gave a talk and like what you were getting at each station and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
Definitely, and that's actually a good way to approach it also because if you're not looking for it, that's when you experience them. If you're
yeah,
going
I
in
mean,
there expecting something to happen,
yeah.
in a way on your mind.
Yeah, I definitely feel like once I go back and watch through all the clips that there might be one or two things that like appeared on the film that none of us caught or like didn't catch on to because we weren't looking for it, you know?
You'd be surprised. You might be more than that. You might go back and watch the footage and see something that nobody saw and
Yeah,
not
that's
even
the
know was
yeah.
there, and then, I don't know. And that was caught accidentally and you weren't trying.
Yeah.
Especially the female section, because Joe and I both kept hearing something behind us. That's why we kept looking back there. We
I had a feeling something was right behind us. I don't know why. Every time I looked back I didn't see anything, but I just had a feeling that there was something behind us. Right, and we were all like looking forward because Hannah was doing her little metal rod session, but I kept glancing back behind me because I just felt like there was like something behind there.
Well, right back there is usually where there's a shadow that appears around, comes around the corner and peek around and then dart back
Yeah.
that area.
Right. So about so how many hours do you think you got total? Do you know, like
Oh
overall?
goodness.
Goodness.
Well, the speech at the beginning itself was an hour long
Right.
of footage, and each rotation was about 45 minutes long, and I was recording, I think, for most of it, so about like 45 minutes times
For
four,
the
and
hour.
more extra stuff
Yeah.
after that. Yeah.
Because I know you were filming also like here and there, like even before it started, and weren't you
Yeah.
doing some shots and stuff? So
Yeah.
yeah, should be yeah. I can't wait to see it. You know, I'm
Yeah, I
Yeah.
excited.
can't wait to
I'm
watch it
excited.
too.
She's my daughter, and I was there.
Yeah.
I can't wait to watch it. And
I'll start editing it once I get back home from my trip.
yeah, it'll be good. And like and Fright Reads, it's going to be premiered there. And
Yeah.
Get Haunted is going to be there. So and little Annabelle is going to be there. And
Yeah, I love Little Annabelle.
yeah, who doesn't love little Annabelle?
Little Annabelle's so cute.
But actually, I think Hannah just asked you a question about the.
Oh, what'd she ask?
I
What's the
think
editing process for? Oh goodness. Okay, so what I for editing, I use CapCut for everything. I love CapCut so much. I just upload the videos, and then from there I'll trim them down, and then I'll break them up and splice them, and then however long that is, after I take out all the long pauses or stuff that's not really happening, I'll see how long it is, and then I'll cut down stuff that I think are less important than the other things to make sure that it's like an hour 45 minutes long, so it won't be too long, so because I won't be adding it, so the editing process will be pretty easy for me because I'm not adding anything to it. I'm not adding any special effects. I'm not adding like like music or anything like that. It's supposed to just be pure like raw footage, so it's gonna be lengthy because I have to watch through all the footage, but it's not gonna be lengthy because I'm adding stuff in.
you don't want to digitally put in the Brim Cat Shadow Man from the book. Just go buy once.
Well, because then after that, my work is fake and it's lost
Yeah.
its like credibility. Or,
Oh, I
or
completely
anything.
agree. And I think one of the things that like Rob and I know Sarah, unfortunately, she wasn't there, and all the Get Haunted crew. I think one of the things that they they that they are going to enjoy, or they let's say believe in with you doing this, is you're not going to sensationalize anything. You're not going to like zoom in real fast on something that you hadn't zoomed in yet to try to get somebody to think that something was down the hallway. I mean, this is more of a documentary. This is more of a documentary about Get Haunted's rotations at MSP and less about ghost hunting, right? It's more
Yeah.
it's more about the get like what
'Cause
they do.
even if I don't get anything, it's a pretty cool, fun, educational video, So
Yep, everybody gets to learn from the history and
yeah,
what's on there.
they just get an idea of what like Get Haunted and MSP is all about, So
Yeah. They can use it as like a, marketing tool.
yeah, yeah,
They'll splice it up and use it as commercials. All of a sudden we'll be like watching, the Super Bowl, and there'll be a Get Haunted video, and it'll be your footage.
Yeah, there you go.
yeah.
So,
I'll talk to Rob about it. I'll sweet talk him.
I think we had
Damien had a question. Would you say you were a skeptic before you started this journey?
is that for both of us?
Both of you.
Man, I'm from Salem, Massachusetts, and I lived in a funeral home like during my formative years. I think I was born into the idea that there's something, right? You don't really know what it is, but there's something, So I wouldn't call myself a skeptic. However, I definitely don't think that when you're ghost hunting, and just because you're ghost hunting, that every creak or pop the house makes is a ghost. right? So because if you weren't ghost hunting, if I was just doing the laundry and the house made that same pop, I'm not going to go, it's a ghost, right? So I found that when I was at MSP for those 8 weeks, there were people that came on the ghost tours who wanted every sound. They wanted every feeling. They wanted every shadow to be a ghost because they went to ghost hunt, right? So it must be, because that's why we're there. And so skeptic, no, I definitely weigh each moment. Which way could it go? I don't just go 100% in, or 100% out. So I think I take each thing as it comes and try to decide, are we thinking it's a ghost only because we're ghost hunting, right? If that happened at 2 p.m, during a dinner party, would we all go, it's a ghost, right? So I kind of try to walk a fine line, just to keep my own sanity, I think.
And then Wade asks, how do you write about fear terror, or do you give the reader the information and allow them to fill it in with their imagination?
So the people's imagination can be their worst enemy and the greatest tool for an author. So yes, I give you just enough, right? I love the Twilight Zone because they always kind of alluded that there was something in the shadows or something weird. And then, they kind of left your imagination run wild. And I kind of do that with all of my novels. I don't give you everything. I don't show my whole hand, ever. And I let the person fill in the blanks. But I did, so something of, but I did want to let Annalise answer that last question too, about being a skeptic. Cause I know that, I think, we've had a lot of conversations about ghosts and stuff. So, I wanted to hear how she ran.
So I've never been a skeptic. I just think about ghosts in a very scientific way, just more of not technically beings, but more of just sources of leftover energy from someone that has died that hasn't gone anywhere else yet. So I don't know if that's still considered a ghost, but that's how I think of them. So
Like an imprint, like it's just there.
It's like
because the saying is energy can't be destroyed or created; it can only be transferred. So I just think it's just leftover energy that holds memory, and that's what we experience with the paranormal. So
yeah, that's a good way of putting it, and that's actually true.
I love hearing so many different theories, because we don't know, right? We know that 2 + 2 = 4, right? But we don't know. And so when I hear other people's thoughts and theories, I love when I hear something that I wouldn't have thought of myself. And then I go, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
I'm like, shit, I never thought of that. I didn't think of that. I never thought about it, but my God, somebody said just recently to me, they said, what if ghosts are parts of the space-time continuum that is thinner, and we're just seeing silhouettes of another dimension? They just got too close, right? That's all it is. They just get too close. Maybe MSP in another dimension is I don't know, an orphanage, and we're just seeing them get too close to, and we're close, right? So maybe they're seeing us on their side. And I was like, my mind just went, right?
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'm too sober for this. I can't, I can't have this conversation right now. But
Transer asks, sorry if this was asked or covered. What is the history behind the dwelling that you both went to cover your book?
we're talking about MSP, but I don't even understand by dwelling.
That's probably he's talking about MSP.
So it says, what is the history behind it? It was, oh gosh, it was,
There's a lot of history.
I forget what year it was opened.
1836 or something like that.
Yeah, something around there, and it closed in 2004 because last year was its 20th anniversary of closing.
Yeah,
and it was it was referred to as the bloodiest 47 acres in America, and it just had atrocities, and atrocities and atrocities. I mean, that's a whole other podcast to tune into if we want to talk about the history of MSP. I did do a lot of research at the history of MSP, and I do include it in the book. So the book does kind of almost become a historical horror novel at times, especially with the 1954 riot. I found of all of MSP's history, I was most drawn to the riot. like what happened that night. It's fascinating for me because, you know, being a police officer for one, I just can't believe how big and how fast it went down. So, you know, I knew that the riot resonated with me, and I knew it needed to be in my novel. So the riot is a massive part of my book. And so I had to do a lot of research for it, and I learned so much about that night. So, you know, if you want to look up the 1954 riot MSP, you'll go down a rabbit hole, and there's pictures, and they had a cop. They were so scared because of so many inmates had broken free that they were putting calls out to police departments up to 100 miles away to respond to help. There was an officer that drove his patrol car 100 miles away in 1954, broke down a quarter of a mile from MSP and ran the rest of the way and left, just abandoned his car because that's how bad they needed help. Like, that just shows you the urgency and panic that was happening that night, you know?
And then Damien asked if a producer wanted to make your novels into a movie, do you have direct say on that side, or is that part of your team that would set that up?
Damien, if you know a good lawyer, send him my way. That's all lawyers do. That lawyers to hash that out. You know, that. So to give a serious answer to Damien, usually what happens is there's a contract, and then once the contract is signed, there's no wiggle room, right? So I could sign a contract, and the contract could be, we're going to give you X amount of money and buy this book, and then I don't get a single say, right? They just pay me money, and I have to walk away from it. And then there's some contracts, you know, there's some contracts where the author very much wants to be involved in the casting process or the script writing process. So there's so many different variables to that.
Damien said he's seen a ghost woman behind you.
That was Edelweiss. She does that. She was being nosy. I think she heard Annalise's voice and knew I was on a podcast. She tries to cameo every podcast now. She like photobombs my podcast.
Yeah, I saw that walk past.
Yeah, that was her. She didn't have to go that way. Yeah, she could have gone a different way, but no, she needed to check in, make sure that her face got on camera. I'm sure she was up there, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Annalise would have to direct it. Yes.
Yeah, I've already said that multiple times. I was like looking at the places. I'm like, this is where this would be. This is where that would be. I'm like, if I'm not directing this movie, if these walls still talked, or if I at least don't even have like one part in it, I'll be very upset. I want to be a part of it if it happens.
Yeah. You'll disown me. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there was a movie shot at MSP.
So
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still like fake blood. And the weekend, here's a really funny story. Really two quick funny stories about them. It's called, I'm gonna have the name wrong, but I can never remember the real title. It's called like Frankie Got Violent, or Frankie, I don't know, put violence in his backpack or something, or Frankie ate a violent taco. I forget. It's something called that. It's a really weird name. It's got Frankie and violence in the title. The weekend that they shot on a Sunday, and I had just left Saturday morning at like 4 a.m. writing, and they were coming in Sunday morning at like 8 or 9. I could have those times a little bit off, but you get the picture. There was only a few hours after I had left. They had redesigned A-Hall for the shoot, how they wanted it, but nobody moved my writing desk. So when I look at the scene in A-Hall, I see my writing desk. I'm like, this is my writing desk. Like my chair, my little pad, my table, like nobody moved it. So second funny thing about the story is the following weekend, I was back in there writing Friday night, and it was free roam. And we had this woman go, oh, hey guys. And she got really excited. She thought she had come across something fantastic. So she came and got like me, because I think I was around the corner writing, and then one of the tour guides, and she's like, there's blood on the floor in here. There's blood in the floor in here, right? And then we realized it was the movie blood, right? But we were like, what? We touched it, right? I was like, what is blood doing? Yeah, that's blood. And she's like, oh my God. Yeah, so that was fun. But yeah, they did. They shot the movie there, and they left a whole bunch of props behind, and we were finding them as we were walking around.
Oh, wow. Well, they also did one several years back called Haunted Cell Block 11. It was about a pair of TV ghost hunters, and this doctor said he had this property that he needed them to check out, and apparently he was torturing people in MSP there, and calls this group out to get was supposed to get rid of him. And they had a psychic. The psychic ends up getting possessed by this inmate,
As they usually do. Sure. Yeah.
and he ended up the psychic ended up dying in the movie. He gets thrown over one of the railings with a chain and hangs himself. And they end up experiencing a whole bunch of stuff. So I can imagine how much they stirred up just by making that stuff up for the movie in that prison.
Yeah, it's weird because my GhostTube app, I had my GhostTube app on whenever I was writing next to me. It was just on constantly. And it would say things that correlated with things that were about to happen. They talked about the movie before the movie happened, right? They knew every time I was in there because it would, I can't tell you how many times my GhostTube app, and I would take screenshots when I couldn't believe it was saying certain things, right? That were just so specific to something I was writing, almost to the point where I felt like someone was looking over my shoulder reading it. I mean, my GhostTube app would say words of or a character name that I had just typed, right? The very first time that I wrote Hannah's name, which is the second paragraph of the novel, I finished typing the H at the end of her name, and my GhostTube app said Hannah, and I screenshot it and texted to her. It had never said it before, right? I mean, why? That's so weird. Like, that's so weird.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. Like that event, the Nesper event that we were all at the first time when we were in death row, we were running a spirit box, which is a reverse sweep ink box. So everything is swept in reverse, and the name Amy came across there. Well, come to find out from Jenny that Amy's crypt was going to be there 2 weeks after.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. They were coming into film.
And
did you know that I was at MSP the weekend before you guys came, and my GhostTube app, me and Jenny's GhostTube app kept saying the doll, the doll, the doll, the doll, the doll, and you guys, well, Wade, brought the shadow doll, and it knew, like it knew,
Oh yeah, they know when things are coming out.
Yeah.
Granzer had another question. What made you choose MSP as a spot? It was close by you, or the stories you've heard about MSP, or other reasons?
Yeah.
I know this.
This story is I'll try to keep it short. So I'm born and raised in Salem, Massachusetts. We live in DC now, the DC area. I was a police officer for 16 years, took a break, and then went back to police and got hired as a detective in the DC area. In order to be a detective, I had to go through a total of 18 weeks of training, 10 weeks with a 3-week period of 3 week. But there goes Edelweiss. This is the shadow figure everyone's seeing. It's 10 weeks, then 3 weeks home, and then 8 more weeks. And it was all in Missouri. All 18 weeks were in Missouri, in the St. Roberts area, which is, if anybody knows Missouri, it's kind of like about an hour from Springfield. That's where the training was. We were there about, towards the end of our 10 weeks, and we had basically done everything you could do every weekend. We had run out of things to do. We were bored. One of the guys in my training class, another police officer, said, "Hey, the Missouri State Penitentiary does overnight ghost hunts. Would you want to do something like that?" I'd never done anything like that before in my life, right? I'm from Salem, Massachusetts. I grew up in a funeral home in Salem, Massachusetts. You would think I would have done ghost tours, right? I've never done a ghost hunt in my life. I was like, yes, I want to do this. This sounds amazing. Had no idea what we were doing. No idea what was going on. I went in there like eyes as green could be. And I will tell you a really quick funny story after I say this, just to give you an idea of how bad I was at ghost hunting. It ended at 3, I think it was there, or I forget, it was there 11, there 10 to 3 tour, free roam. I don't remember what it was. All I remember is that when it was time to leave, I didn't want to go. Have you ever been doing something so fun for the first time and it's time to go? You're like, I just don't want to stop. I don't want to leave. This is great. This is amazing. I was so happy with it that I was like, we're coming back next weekend. And that was the Get Haunted Nesper night. Mm-hmm. I had no idea who Get Haunted was. I'd never heard of them before in my life. I knew who the Warrens were, obviously, being from New England, I knew who Nesper was. But I didn't care that Nesper was there, and I didn't care that Get Haunted was there. I just wanted to go back to MSP and do another ghost hunt, right? That's what I wanted to do. We went, and you got to remember, the first time I went, it was just an MSP free roam, right? MSP doesn't do their rotations, right? So it was weird to be like hoarded into A-Hall. I was like, what's going on? I was like, what's going on? This isn't what we did last weekend. What, this is a guy talking? Who's this guy talking? This silly looking man, with his salt and pepper hair and talking about his life. I was like, I don't care. I just want to go ghost hunt. That was Rob, like, I was like, can we get, like, what's going on here? And then we got Trevor. I was like, why is this guy stuttering so much? Can we just like talk and get on with our rotations? Just so I have full permission to tease Trevor about his stuttering. I don't even think I'm being mean. He stutters in the book, which is funny. But then
I read it.
Yeah, then we broke up into the rotations, and I was and that's when I said, huh. Yeah, that fell into there's a book here, right? So now we're up to where we were talking about earlier. I left that, so I went during my 10 weeks of training, and then I came home for 3 weeks because there was a 3-week break. So when I went back for those 8 weeks of training to finish out my course, that was when I went and wrote the book. So I would go to class. I was in class Monday through Friday during the daylight hours, and I was at MSP at nighttime. And I document all that in my diary. In fact, my diary at the end of the book actually notates the hours that I was in there every day, how many hours I was in there and stuff like that. Actually, almost like a time card, right? For like a job. But just to tell you how green I was about ghost hunting and how little I knew, I think it was around week 3 of my 8 weeks of writing the book. I must have been on chapter 4 or 5. And Lisa, the tour guide, is talking about the REM pods because they have REM pods at MSP. Yep. They don't really advertise that they do because they don't want everybody checking them out. But if they feel like they got a good group and everyone's going to be kind of respectful of the equipment, they'll go get them, right? And I was using REM pods in my story. And thanks, Hannah. And Lisa was like, okay, so I've got the REM pods. And I was like, whoa, hold on. What did you just say? She's like, the REM pods? I was like, the REM pods? She's like, yeah. I was like, could you spell that for me? She's like, yeah, REM space POD. She's like, why? I was like, well, good thing that Control H change all exists in documents, because up until that day, I thought they were called REN pods, REN. So in my book, they were called REN pods all the way up until that moment. And I felt like an idiot. So I tell that story just to show people that I'm not a ghost hunter. Like, I went in there, as just amazed at what was going on, right? I did not know the equipment. I didn't know how to use it. I didn't even know how to spell it, but I loved it. So, that's, that MSP will always have a special place for me because it's where it started, right? And I love those buildings. And I love the people there. It's not just the buildings. I mean, Jenny and Sheila and Lisa and Reese and Dano and, and I'm forgetting people, I know, but, it's the people. So.
Oh yeah, they're all awesome down there. They treat us like family too. And in fact, my cousin John Zaffis calls Jenny the warden.
Jenny's the warden?
Yep.
Yeah.
I call Sheila the warden because she's
well, she is. I mean, she's the prison boss, so I mean, she'd be more of the warden than anything.
Yeah, I call her more of the warden than Jenny, but
yeah, Reese calls her the Oompa Loompa, which then I put in the book because it's funny. I thought that was hysterical. The first time she called her Oompa Loompa in front of a bunch of guests, I was like, "Oh, that's going in the book." I was like,
I can imagine what Sheila says about that.
Oh, Sheila loved the book. She was a little unhappy with
even her own employee Reese called her that.
Yeah. No, I love it when I was getting text messages when people were reading it, when certain things would happen to them in the book and be like, I can't believe you did that to me, or I thought you liked me, or I was like, Reese, you know I never liked you. No, I'm just kidding. But
yeah, they all cheered us when we pulled up.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's a good experience. It was fun. It was fun to write the book. It was 8 weeks in there writing. The book is getting good reviews. It's now out, right? It's now out. I can't do anything about it now. It's available in every bookstore, paperback, ebook, and an audiobook. Oh my god! In the U.S., the U.K., Canada, Australia, some stores in France, Germany, in Italy. I know I'm forgetting some country. Yeah, I know I'm forgetting some. I'm sure I'm forgetting some country, but it's worldwide, and it's out. And it's not like all the build up now. It's weird to think that it's out there because we've spent so much time preparing for this release. And there we go. Yay! Is Annalise my prodigy? No, Annalise is going to film school to be a movie director. So Annalise is not going. I'm going to write the book. She's going to direct them. We're going to be a tandem.
Yeah. I'm in no way like an author, like genius or whatever.
And I'm in no way a director, anything. Trust me. This is me. Literally, this is me like with a camera. Is this on? Is it facing the right way? I'm like.
I'm actually in the process of writing a movie now.
You are?
Yep.
About what?
It's about an actual urban legend in Pennsylvania.
Oh wow, I love urban legends.
And I've got my own little horror twist to it.
Oh, that's fun.
Wow.
Let's just say it's gonna have have you ever seen Wrong Turn?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I
haven't seen it yet, but I've heard things about it. I want to see it.
It's gonna have that feel to it.
We'll have to watch that when you get back home, Annalise. Wrong Turn. I saw that in the theater. It messes with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, did he say he was a believer, or was he just like careful about what he?
Yeah, I was definitely a
believes?
believer. I was just careful. I just didn't think that.
What got me into the genre? Oh goodness! So my dad, he's what got me into horror. I learned about paranormal stuff through horror movies. I've always had a love for horror. I was watching, like the Thriller music video at 3. My very first horror movie I think I ever watched was Paranormal. No, it wasn't. Wait, what was it? Poltergeist. Yes, Poltergeist. The very first movie ever, horror movie I ever watched was Poltergeist. So that's probably what did it for me with the ghosts and stuff. So I've always had a love for anything with like demons, paranormal stuff, stuff like Insidious, The Conjuring, Paranormal Activity. That stuff fascinates me so much because so much of history with humans and stuff is believing in these things that we can't really see, but it's been around. The concept of it has been around for so long. I find it so interesting.
Yes. Yeah, and Damien, it is a huge mug. It's Awesome Con, which is a convention I do every year, and it is filled with orange Tang. I don't know if anybody ever drinks Tang. If you guys know what Tang is. You
always are drinking some weird kind of juice. I don't know. You're always coming home saying, "I got this new juice."
but it is big, and I am small, Damien. So it is both. Yes, I am a small person, and this is a big mug. So proportionately, it's weird. All right.
The question, the Russell Reynolds story, you will get scared, very scared.
Is that a promise? There's some big promise. There's some big things to be about here. But
I can be scary.
Yeah. So
I do the exact same thing my cousins, the Warrens, did too. I go out and I deal with demons and demonic hauntings and.
Yeah.
My gateway into horror movies was The Exorcist, and I still to this day, possession films is my favorite subgenre. Possession films 1, and then haunted house stories 2. There's something about a good possession movie. Maybe it's because I went through 13 years of private Catholic school, and it's just like ingrained in me, right? But there's something about a good possession film that I won't say no to.
But yeah, I would say my dad is the reason why I am so interested in this stuff, because he encouraged me a lot along the way, to embrace, like my liking for this kind of stuff.
Well, when you guys were in Missouri, you guys weren't too far away from the Exorcist house.
The Exorcist house.
Right here in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, so where they shot it is in Georgetown, DC, and the famous stairs. We've been living here now 5 years, and I still have yet to go walk up the stairs. And that's just something I'll do that at some point. It's on my bucket list. So, but
There were, yeah.
The Blob and
love
the Thing, black and white.
The Thing in black and white. Oh yeah. And then you moved on to Freddy. Yeah, Freddy Krueger was my first slasher like series, but for Annalise it was Halloween. I introduced her to Halloween before.
Halloween was what got me into movie making.
Yeah,
John Carpenter is my biggest inspiration ever.
Yeah, he does good stuff.
Yeah, he's a classic.
Yeah. And Annalise got to meet him and chat with him one-on-one for a few minutes, and
yeah,
I got to meet the guy over the weekend who played Michael Myers in the newer John Carpenter Halloween. He did the stunts for Nick Castle.
Yeah, Nick Castle's great. I mean, Nick Castle's so funny in his own right, but when the new Halloween movies were being filmed, the guy who does the stunts, they showed him on a treadmill walking at a slow pace, and it said training for the new Halloween movie because that's how fast Michael walks. So he's like in training, just walking really slow, and he was in full costume. I thought that was funny.
And he also did the Hellhound in Annabelle Comes Home.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that. Oh, I did know that. Yeah. If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have remembered, but that's right.
And then he plays Sasquatch in the Jack Link commercials.
Sasquatch. That's a whole nother, that gets into the Ditto House stuff now. And that's a whole nother thing.
I want to go to the Ditto House.
Just those giggling children scare the crap out of me. Giggling children.
Well, I'm surprised down in the dungeon we didn't hear a woman yell hello. The first time we went to MSP, that's where we started off, was down in the dungeon. We were just getting set up, and I had my camera running, and the rest of my team were just setting stuff up. And we had 2 other investigators with us from this team out of St. Louis, and we all heard a woman yell hello. So I sent them up to check up top to see if somebody was yelling down the stairs. There was nobody up in the cell block.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I could be wrong, and I'm going to say that because I don't want to ever say something and people think that it's 100% real. I could be wrong, but I don't think there were ever any women in the dungeon. I think it was males only. I could be incorrect, but I was under the assumption that there was no woman ever down there.
Yeah, you are right, because when we heard it, Diane, I don't know if you got to meet Diana, if she stopped by while you were there. She's a retired overnight tour guide.
Yeah, I think she swung by. I think she popped in out front. I was talking to her out front.
And I asked her about it. I said, is that normal that you hear a woman's voice down in the dungeon? She said they never housed women down there, but you're not the only one that reports hearing women down there. She said several of our visitors have too. And it's weird. I also walked out of MSP. It looked like someone had branded me right here on the arm with a cigarette.
Oh, really?
And I got the first visit there too.
The first rotation down in the dungeon Saturday night, we were talking. We hadn't started the EVP yet. We hadn't gone lights out yet. And it sounded like, and myself and maybe 2 or 3 other people who were on my side of the hall. You remember where I was standing? So I was looking down the hallway towards the cell. Everybody in that little group, we all heard what sounded like the sound that it would make if you were sitting on one of those metal chairs and stood. So it was like that quick, like creak back, and we all heard it. We all stopped. And I was like, I've sat in those chairs many times over 8 weeks writing this book. And that's what it sounds like when someone stands off of it. I was like, and we were like, hello? Is anybody down there? We thought maybe maybe a guest wandered. It's so dark down there, you couldn't tell if somebody was down there or not, right? It's like cave darkness. But there was nobody down there. But it was that distinct sound of someone rising from a metal chair, and that metal chair kind of kicking back a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun, yeah.
Well, that's like when you went to go pick up Rob's dead bell out of the In Your Face cell, and you heard that table in there.
Oh yeah, yep. That scared the crap out of me. Yeah. Oh yeah, the dungeon gives me like my hairs on my arm stand on end when I'm down in the dungeon. It just is. I always feel like it's just right here. It's always like right here. So, do you both ever attend your local horror con where you not only meet and greet those who are going to see what you can see? So I do as an author. I do a lot of cons. I'm doing a total of like 26 this year. I think 26 dates this year alone. Last year I didn't do as many because I was gone for 18 weeks in Missouri, but the year before that I did 24. So I basically live at horror cons or book festivals, or as an author, I vend everywhere. I'm
And I tag along a good amount of the time as well.
Yeah, I've been a keynote speaker at one last year, so I get asked to kind of go around. I'm the guest of honor sometimes, so yeah, I'm and I have my booth there with all my books, and I do my signing. So that's pretty much that is turned into another full-time job, is being an author, right? So,
Ooh, what's kind of, oh my goodness. Well, I like slashers, but I wouldn't do one because that's just not my style. I would, I don't know. I would probably do something paranormal with like monsters, but like not like typical like vampire, like Frankenstein, kind of like more like Skinwalker, or like someone that's like insane type thing. Uh Probably, yeah, like possession or like paranormal, stuff like that. I think I would have fun making.
I could see you having fun doing like something with a cryptid, like some creature, like
That's what I was saying. Like I like creatures. I don't really like. I can see myself just doing like a normal monster, like kind of like Skinwalker hiding in the woods, kind of thing. I love stuff like that.
Skinwalkers scare the crap out of me. I don't know if
I,
those like reels on Facebook are true, but my God, there's some of them where I'm just like, nope, no, thank you. You can have that dog. You can take that dog right out of this house.
They are real. We actually worked the Skinwalker case, and we
yeah.
had one actually shapeshift from a hawk and disappear in the midair, and it pinned my father up against the tree, and he kept having this claw mark bruise that kept showing up for 2 weeks straight on his wrist.
No, thank you.
And my members were back by the woods, and they called me back there, and we all got to looking. Here's that same hawk sitting in the tree in the woods looking at us. And then that night, we kept hearing stuff up in the corner of the cemetery. We walked up there, and my buddy was with me, and he shined the flashlight down. He says, "Stop." I said, "What?" And I looked down, and I was that close to getting impaled through the stomach by a fence post.
Oof.
It was luring me right into that fence post, and then right above my head, an owl lets out a owl.
That's some Final Destination crap right there.
Yeah, and so, and there's been numerous reports of a skinwalker in that cemetery.
That's scary. So
Yeah.
that's yeah. The
I
one
mean,
thing. Good.
oh, I mean, I want to believe skinwalkers are real, but I'm kind of like skeptic on it. I'm not saying like no, they're definitely not real, but it's like one of those things where like I'm not gonna really believe in them until I see something like with my own eyes that like I know I saw. So they're interesting for
Another
sure.
good, another good one to be making a movie of, the Pharaoh people of the Appalachians.
Appalachian Mountains. The feral people of the Appalachian Mountains.
The
They are so.
Appalachian Mountains. Okay. Oh my gosh, I've actually done so much stuff with the Appalachian Mountains because people go missing there all the time. The
Mhm.
Appalachian Mountains, oh, it fascinates me because they've been around since the time of the dinosaurs. So they've literally been around for so long. There's like people believe that there's like some like animals in there that like we haven't even discovered yet because they've been around for so long. Which could maybe explain some of the sightings that people might see there, but like doing a film in there because they're so unknown and like mysterious, I would love to do a film based off the Appalachian Mountains.
Let me know. I can hook that up. I got a buddy out there that lives out in Tennessee in those Smoky Mountains, Appalachian area, and
How's that for him?
he's actually they're out tonight out in the woods
Wow.
I'd be
investigating.
terrified to like go out back to pee. You know, I'd be like, you're like having a party, and then like your buddy goes missing, and you're like, oh, Joe just went to pee on the dumpster, and he's not around anymore.
Not around anymore.
Which cryptid is the one you really are driven to a big fan of? I'll answer this first, and I'll turn it over to Annalise. There's something about like Mothman that if Mothman's considered a cryptid, that just is like wildly fascinating for me.
Oh yeah, Mothman.
It's really, because I don't know. I don't know what it is, However, Get Haunted Tale Book 2 is going to have Sasquatch in it because of the Ditto House, because the Ditto House woods is known for Bigfoot, sightings. So I'm incorporating not only the ghost of the Ditto House, but also the surrounding land area that it's known for. So Get Haunted Book 2 is going to have cryptids in it for the first time. We're doing squatches, so that'll be fun.
Me personally, I don't know if this is really considered a cryptid more than like a creepypasta, but I'm really fascinated with like Slender Man. I think it's really cool. Just like the like stories that surround him and stuff like that. So that's something that really fascinates me because again, he's like some kind of creature that like lurks in the woods.
Yep.
So
Children.
I like that.
If you want to learn about Slender Man, if you go on my YouTube channel here, my future podcast from Supernatural Inc., I did a whole show on Slender Man and several other cryptids from the Appalachian Mountains, the Tennessee Wild Man.
Well,
I mean,
Annalise,
I have to make sure I check that out. That sounds pretty cool.
I got Slender Man hiding in your closet for when you get home, so you'll be all right. You can just ask him what you want.
I've done stuff on Mothman, the Jersey Devil, because I'm originally from the East Coast. I grew up in New York State. So I did one on the Catskill Mountain Witch.
Oh, yeah, I know that one. Yeah, sure.
Which I've heard
yeah.
since I was a kid. And I lived not too far from where she was turned to stone in those mountains.
Yeah.
My dad used to do workout in that area all the time. So I used to go out there when I was a kid. And there is 2 mounds in the lake that are said to be her eyes.
Wow.
Would Loch Ness Monster be considered a cryptid? Would that be categorized as one?
Yeah, that would be considered.
Because we don't know what it is, right? If it exists, if it came out and it was all like, "Hey, look at me, I'm a cryptid." Mothman, cryptid or space alien? Oh, I think Mothman's a cryptid. I don't think it's from outer space. I think it's
I think it's more of like a werewolf type situation. Like where it's like half man, half moth kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's like I just did one a couple weeks ago on the Rougarou.
Yeah.
And several other cryptids like the Boggy Creek Monster, and I had our local Bigfoot guy on with me.
Who, Squatch Man?
No, Carter Burchart.
Oh.
He's our Missouri Bigfoot guy. He was a consultant on the show Finding Bigfoot when they did it in Kansas.
Do you know Squatch Man over in Kentucky?
Yep.
Dude, that man, oh my God, I fell in love with him. I even have a Squatch Man t-shirt now. Is that he wasn't going to be a character in the book, but after I spent 2 days with him, I was like, how can you not be? So
the Chupacabra is a cryptid, right? Or is that like more of like folklore kind of thing?
That's more like a paranormal folklore. The Chupacabra is.
The Chupacabra is pretty cool, I actually think.
I did one on the Wampus cat. I don't know if you've ever seen.
I don't know what that is.
I've never heard of that.
It actually looks like a cougar, but only it's got 6 legs.
You're not talking about like an older female that goes after young men, right?
No,
I never know. You said cougar. I was like, oh, okay. Well, this shifted. What podcast am I on, Russell? What podcast did we?
Yeah, it's got like 6 legs, and it's a lot more built than like your regular mountain lion would look like.
Oh, that's creepy.
And that's known to be in the Appalachian Mountains and the Smoky Mountains.
So basically what I'm hearing is just don't go there. Like, just steer clear of.
You hear from people that live in the Appalachian, like there's my friend Kara Coffin lives in part of the Appalachian, and as a little girl, you weren't outside at night. She was saying,
Because you're not worried about like the kidnappers or like the robberies. You're worried about the fucking like little cryptids coming out of the trees and stealing you. The France
Oh my god!
catacombs.
Oh my god! I love the oh my gosh! I love the French catacombs so much. Oh, I want to. Oh,
There were like, remember the movie
as above, so below, or
as
something
well
like
as
that.
below, yeah.
"Yep,
That movie. Oh, and the Paris. I got a tour of the Paris catacombs online during COVID. I'm so interested in them because it's quite literally just walls of human bones, and there is no doubt that there are some crazy paranormal, maybe even some like demonic things happening there because like I don't know where else all those people's like bodies are like supposed to be like hanging out, They're not hanging out like on the surface, they're hanging out down there.
yep,
It creeps me out and especially since like in the movie there was like cults hiding underneath there and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I'm
Doesn't like past catacombs go back to like the 1700s or something, or
yeah,
even
it's like
further?
so
17."
old. They're so old, and I'm so interested in visiting them one day. If I ever go to France, I have to go to the Paris catacombs.
Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, so I got Ditto House is next. I will be there writing from July 26th to August 10th. Ernie and Denise have graciously opened their home to me for 15 days.
Oh, awesome.
They
Yeah, I
also
love
they
Journey.
also told me that I can stay longer if I need. But you know what? They live there. This is their home. It's not like MSP where I can go and hide in a cell and I'm not impeding anybody. I mean, so 15 days. I got to figure out how to write a book in 15 days and be terrified of giggling children
Under
in
your bed.
my bed, and then supposedly you feel the weight of them when they get into bed with you. If that happens, I'm just going to get in my car and drive home like that. It might be 2 a.m. I don't care. I'm just coming home. If anything gets in bed with me and it's not a cougar, I'm just going to be so like,
And it's not a cougar.
so I just, yeah. So the part of me is scared. I actually had this conversation yesterday with somebody. They asked me, like, why is it the house more scary for you? Like, you spent 8 weeks at MSP. Like, why are you so scared about this? Why is there so much anxiety? If you've been to MSP or seen photos, it's huge, right? It's open. A hall is massive. When you're in A hall, you're looking up at 4 walks. You're looking at all this space. Even when you're in 3 and you're in housing unit 1, you get the sense that if something pops around the corner, all the way down there, I can run all the way down there, right? You just get this feeling that it's open. You're not very claustrophobic. The Ditto House, if you've ever been there or seen pictures, not only are the rooms really small, but I guarantee you that at the Ditto House, if you ran out of a room because you saw something into another room, you're probably going to see something in that room too. You're just going towards
Right.
more stuff. So I think the Ditto House has this claustrophobic, but not just in a, you don't, yeah, I feel maybe that might add to the writing.
There's
Also,
nowhere to run,
I
so
know,
like
I
there's
know.
very few places to go.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go. You literally have nowhere to go. And Ernie and Denise are going to be working. They work, right? They're working folk. They can't stay home and hang out with me while I'm writing this book. So there's going to be, I don't know, 8-10 hours a day where I'm alone in the house. And trust me, at the Ditto House, whatever ghosts are there, they could care less what time it is. They're not like, hey, it's 2 p.m. Let's not scare anybody. Let's wait.
Right? Yeah, they're active all the time.
They're like, screw this. Yeah, it's like, right. So there is just as much chance of walking into a room and seeing something or something there at 4 p.m. as there is at 4 a.m. And I think that also scares me, especially since I'm going to be there like literally alone, right? Like the grandfather clock just ticking in the background, tick, tick, tick. And I'll just be, this is going to be me writing for 15 days. Like that's it. So it'll be fun.
Damien,
And
do you
okay.
both believe in ghost pets or animals, or is spirit energy you feel only grounded to humans?
So I'm going to say this. With my theory of energy, if that's the case, it can't just be to humans, because then that just ruins my whole theory about everything that dies, its energy, that's left over is about. I just personally believe that since the energy holds memories, kind of like how water is known, like has been said to hold memories, that the ghosts or spirits of animals can't kind of communicate to us the way that the humans do. So I just think it's so much easier for us to have more connections with human spirits than animals. It's not that I don't believe in them. I just don't think that it's very possible for us to communicate to like the spirits of animals than it is to humans.
There's an interesting theory that I was actually kind of working through in my head. What if, let's throw this theory out. What if when we die and everything dies, right? So everything from a bird to an octopus to us, again, we're all energy. What if we become like this collective consciousness, right? That encompasses all, and so everything knows everything. So maybe that's how Hero's mom's name was said in the dungeon. It wasn't Hero's mom. It's a collective consciousness that would know his mom's name because
Or
she's
how I was able to like talk to Uncle Paul as well
right, because it's a
in the
collective
women's unit.
consciousness. So think of it. Do you ever make like big rubber balls as a kid?
Yep.
Right. Maybe every time something passes, it's a rubber band around the ball, and the ball just gets bigger, and all the rubber bands know each other's thoughts and feelings. So something that's at the dungeon of MSP, part of the collective consciousness, knows Hero's mom or is part of Hero's mom, right? It's so entropy is interesting. Now we're gonna get into like science, science shit. But so if you take a glass of water, clear water, and you take a single drop of red dye and you drop it in the water, right? The red's gonna hit the water and it's gonna disperse.
Yep.
Right? That red drop doesn't stay a red drop and sink to the bottom. You can't reach in and pick the red drop and bring it back out, right? It infects the whole thing. So maybe that's the collective consciousness. So every time someone passes, we're another drop of red dye in a glass of water, mixed equally, right?
I mean, that would also explain why sometimes people have the memories of people that they were in past lives or whatever. I mean, because when people are born, that's again old energy transferring over, and sometimes it still has a part of someone else's thoughts or feelings from
right.
past things.
Yep.
It's so much fun to discuss this, right? Because we can debate it or discuss it, I guess. We're not really debating, but it's fun.
Well, that's even like I tell people all the time. If that person was a jerk when he was alive, that person's gonna be the same jerk when they died.
Yeah.
Stupid jerk.
And then even houses that we do a lot of residential houses, and you get these spirits that were attached to the property. They may have owned the house at one time and they passed away there. They don't realize they're dead, and they get aggressive because they get new people that move into their space. They change what they're used to. They go in, they remodel a house, and then they kick up the activity. Well, that person is trying to protect their space. They consider that still their dwelling, that's still their house, and you're a burglar trespassing.
Mhm.
So it's like a normal instinct. Like when a burglar breaks into your house, what are you going to want to do? Protect your family,
Mhm.
protect your house. So that's basically the same way they're feeling.
Yeah. Can I answer this question? I actually have an answer for this, and I don't get asked this a lot, so this is great. Yes, I would love to investigate the funeral home that I grew up in because
I would love to come with.
I lived in the funeral home from the ages of 8 to 16. That is like your formative years, right? Or well, I mean, in the in the area, and then there was a carriage house that was attached to the funeral home. But it was on the property, right? So it was only separated by probably about 15 feet. And we lived in the carriage house for a while. The funeral home itself, like in the actual home, there's things that happened to us or me as a kid, to my parents. There's stories. I'd love to go. I'd love to be able to just have a night in there with and investigate it, and just in certain places where things have happened to me as a kid. I remember being like 10 years old, right, and something happened to me in a certain room, and then I found out that someone had died in that room, but I didn't know it when I was 10, and it all kind of matches once I found that out, right? So I guess I'd like to go back to a childhood place that I spent so much time growing up. That was my parents' place of business. That's very much well tied to my family, and investigate that. And being a funeral home, like, are you bringing in stuff, right? Are we bringing things in there?
Right.
Hannah wants to get to the Salem tunnels. We'll do that. That's on our bucket list.
Yeah, Salem in general as a whole would be a place that I would love to just kind of investigate and, look for more of that stuff, because so many people died, especially young girls that were accused of witchcraft and stuff like that. So you just know that there's going to be a lot of stuff there.
Yep.
I'll show you guys a little something from MSP. You probably heard this in the history. He was one of the inmates there that died there. He's known as the Kansas City Butcher,
Mm-hmm.
Robert Verdella.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he looked like when he was alive.
I'm going to be him for Halloween.
What?
Right hand side.
Oh, that does look like him. What is that from?
That was actually captured in the museum up there in the old warden's
Goodness.
house.
My goodness, that
That's
does look like
interesting.
him.
It does look like him. It's got the mustache, right? The hair.
There, we'll pull this mugshot back up for comparison.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That was one of our catches up there in the museum. And right after that, my dad was shaking hands with that mannequin guard.
Yep.
And something had grabbed him right by the arm. He had like 5 finger mark bruises on his arm.
We had someone get scratched during the book release party. Like scratch under their clothes.
Oh yeah, I remember Rob saying something about that.
Yeah. I can't remember who it was, but
I got scratched.
You did. Yeah, you got scratched. And then Amy.
And then they disappeared as soon as I stepped out of the state penitentiary when they were having their smoke break, and I stepped out to kind of follow Rob. They disappeared almost to they vanished. It was like the weirdest thing that has ever happened to me. I had like these claw marks on my thighs, and as soon as I stepped out, they were like gone.
Yeah.
They didn't appear again.
Amy, the woman who did the book cover, did all the artwork for These Walls Still Talk. She was there. She went with her friend Jason, and we were in the dungeon. Something pulled on Jason's shirt so hard enough for him to interrupt Rob's speech and go and kind of like he startled him, right? Like it was enough, and so that was kind of cool.
And a lot of people were watching all of us during Rob's speech and stuff. We all kept looking up in the catwalks.
Mm. No, this was when we were in the dungeon. So when because when we went to the dungeon during the rotations, Rob was sitting, like he would sit on the ground and he'd put everybody in front. And then I was standing to the left of Rob.
He was giving his little speech about the dungeon, right?
Yeah, he was doing like the EVP speech, like this is what we do, this is how we do it. And Jason,
if that happened during his speech, I might have gotten it on camera. His reaction to having his shirt tugged.
Yeah, but you weren't in Amy's rotation though.
I wasn't.
I don't think you were with Amy.
No, you were with us in my rotation.
You were with Hannah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I feel like I was with them. I was with them at one point in the night, right?
I mean, well, when we were like hanging out, but no, Amy and Jason were part of the first rotation, so we got.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Then I was kind of a blur to me, though. So.
But I know when Rob was giving the introduction and stuff, we all kept looking up in the catwalks because there were
seeing the peekers.
Oh yeah, they were just peeking at themselves the whole.
They were out. No,
I didn't see any peekers the whole time I was there.
When I went into A Hall before anybody got there, even before any of Get Haunted got there, I think it was just me and Analise and some of the staff. I walked through A Hall to just get, and they were popping. I mean, they were just up on that second and third walk to the left. They were coming out.
When I was setting up my camera and I was the only one in A Hall, because I even called out and to make sure that there wasn't anybody else there. I was setting up, I was alone, just the middle of the day, right? Or it was closer to like 4 or something before everything had started. I kept hearing like scuffling sounds, like someone had trudged their feet on the floor, and I kept turning behind me and I'm like, hello? Hello? Is anybody there? Because I was gonna be mad if someone was like playing a prank on me. But like behind me, I kept hearing like scuffling sounds, like someone had stepped, like had like made a step on the floor.
Mhm.
So at first, I thought someone was trying to creep up behind me because it would stop as soon as I would turn around. But like nothing was ever there.
Yeah, that's very common in A Hall.
Yeah, that's definitely common. We've heard that several
Yeah.
times, and
That was probably the first moment where I was like, okay, this is what I'm about to get myself into.
you gotta realize too, that's the oldest part of the prison, is that.
Yeah.
And, our first time there, we went to dinner with that other team. My dad told this girl she was gonna get touched that night. This is her first time ever going to MSP, so her and her boyfriend decided to tag along with us, and I was like, "If you're the type that gets scared easy, I wouldn't tag along with us because there's chances we're gonna encounter something." We're like,
So
"We want to."
I want to plug MSP historic tours. During the day, they do historic tours, not paranormal at all. But there's a tour guide. His name is Fred, and he was an
Yep.
inmate in MSP. And if you ever get him as a tour guide, he was there. He came to the party. He was there for a bit, and then we were hanging out with him like during one of his tours earlier. He's fantastic because he tells you where things happened to him as an inmate, and he tells you what life was like there from an inmate's perspective, right? So you don't get that with any of the other tour guides. While I love all the tour guides, Fred gives you that. This is just a different angle, and then you hear these stories and you just like, this was your life for 20 years. I can't believe this, or however long he was in there. So yeah, if anybody is going to MSP and you want to switch it up and you don't want to do a ghost tour or hunt, hit one of the historic tours.
I hopped in on one of the history tours just for a little bit in A Hall. It was very interesting.
Yeah, you got Mike. I think Mike was speaking.
He's also one of the tour guides that you'll get a very different experience with, because he is so kind of like, he tells you like stories about like things that's happened. He doesn't really just say the history like, oh, this was built at this time, this was built at that time. He like pulls out like stories he's found, and he's done like very like deep research about stuff. So he says like stories and stuff that like nobody really knows. Like even other tour guides at MSP, they've never really heard these stories before. It was very interesting to hear, a little segment of his tour.
Yep.
This is a question for Brian. Russell posted about a serial killer. Is there a serial killer that has passed that you'd like to investigate their old dwelling?
Sure. His name was Albert DeSalvo, and he was known as the Boston Strangler.
Okay.
And when my mother was a teenager or early 20s, I don't know. I can't be 100% sure of the timeline. He was terrorizing the streets of Boston. He was killing girls off the street. And I grew up kind of knowing the Boston Strangler, right? So you always get like all the ones that everybody, the celebrity ones, and the Boston Strangler, I feel like is interesting to me just because locality, he's the home team, go Boston Strangler, right? Rah, 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 if he can't, nobody can, so, but yeah.
What about you, Annalise?
I just like serial killers in general. I'm I'm kind of like more drawn to Jeffrey Dahmer in that aspect. I've watched so many documentaries and series about Jeffrey Dahmer. It's actually insane. I was just so fascinated about just like how he grew up as a kid and how that affected him later on, and how that kind of turned him into who he was, and it gets me thinking about how many serial killers wouldn't have existed if something about their life was different, you know? Like, um some people are born with just, like psychological like issues and stuff like that, so they're born that way. But then with like other serial killers, something happens to them that makes them snap, and that part of it is what's interesting to me. Like, how different would it have been if this thing hadn't happened to them?
I think mine would be Ed Gein.
Ed Gain.
Oh, Ed Gein, yeah.
Yep, he would be my one. I'm definitely gonna make a trip up there to the old farm, and they've got a big museum up there, his, where they still actually got some of his artifacts that he created
Hmm.
there.
Interesting.
But the history with Ed Gein, that's where the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie come from,
Yep.
and Psycho.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, Psycho was also based on Ed Gein because Ed Gein loved his mother just like Norman Bates did,
But don't we all mostly?
and Ed Gein would dress up like his mother.
Oh, yeah. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah, he would be one of the ones I'd like to go check out.
Wasn't there a serial killer that like wore their mother's face like a mask?
That would be Ed Gein. He was
That's who it was. I was thinking, I was like, that sounds familiar, but yeah, he would dress up as his mom and wear her like face as a mask and
he,
like go out in public or something like that.
that's
Yeah, that was crazy.
how they got Leatherface. Was Ed Gein. We have a local serial killer couple here, not too far from where I live, called Ray and Faye Copeland. Ray would bring in these drifters off the street to work the farm, and he would write checks with their name and forge them for cattle. And then when it would come back to these homeless guys that he was working for him, he'd take them in several locations and pull a 22 out and shoot them. And then his wife would take the clothes and make quilts out of them.
Oh my goodness.
That
They
is that is
and,
like morbid though, taking like dead people's clothes and making stuff out of them.
yep, and they killed several. I think they killed probably over 20 drifters. One
Wow.
guy managed to get away. He actually, about the same time he caught on, he was in the barn and he turned around and Ray had 22 getting ready to shoot him in the head. He managed to escape and he's the one that turned him in. Ray ended up dying in prison. Faye got out on parole and ended up in a nursing home, never spoke another word in her life after that. But she tried to say in her court case that Ray was making her do it and that he was mean to her, but she had her hand in it too.
Hmm.
And their farm is actually maybe 10 miles from where I live, and there's still a lot of bodies unaccounted for. They're still trying to find.
Yeah, and in Iowa, there's this silo full of grain where the owner of the property would kill people and then put them in the silo, and he got caught because the someone drove by and saw him throwing a body in the silo, and the police raided the place and arrested him. Okay, this story is a complete lie. This was a story that Hannah told me when I was visiting her in Iowa, and then she told me like hours later that it was fake, and I believed her, and that was just wanted to throw that out there since we were talking about serial killers.
Yeah, Hannah's right. Ed Gein's story is The Silence of the Lambs because he was also cannibal. Ed Gein was.
Ed Gein is just like kind of like such a celebrity among serial killers.
Yeah, he's like
Yeah.
the Taylor Swift of serial killers, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
everyone knows him.
I know.
Yeah, he's well known Plainfield Butcher.
Wow.
And the most movie that's accurate of his is the one that Kane Hodder plays Ed Gein.
What's the name of that one? Do you know?
It's called Ed Gein.
That's just the name of it.
Yep. Ed Gein, Plainfield Butcher, and Kane Hodder plays him in it.
All right, that's cool.
I'll
I'll
show
have
you
to
guys.
add that to my list.
Those are the Pharaoh people of the Appalachian Mountains.
I didn't know you were doing that, and I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, that was on the screen, and I jumped. No idea
I know.
what's
I was
going
like,
on.
"What's happening?"
It's like, woo.
That's what
That's the Appalachian people.
That
Yep.
is creepy.
They're
Yeah,
known. They live in the mines out there in the Smoky Mountains,
that
and
is crazy.
they date all the way back to the Civil War. They hid out so they didn't have to fight in the war, and they would go burn soldiers' tents and steal supplies, and they would kill people. They're cannibals,
Wow. Do
and
you
it's
think they know that? Do you think they're aware the war is over? I don't like.
I don't know.
Someone should tell them, hey guys.
I wouldn't want to. The way they're cannibal, they'll kill you and eat you.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
That's
Oh, Hannah just mentioned In Dreams. I saw that movie in the theater opening night, and it was like there was like 10 other people there, and nobody ever talks about that movie. But that movie was awesome. Yeah, In Dreams was a great movie.
then there's another movie, BTK, which is another serial.
Yeah. Yep. Mhm.
Jane Hodder plays him also.
Yep, I know that one. Yeah. Yep. All right. Man, well, this was super fun. Anything else we want to touch on before we shove off?
Nope. How can people get a hold of you and they want to book
Yeah,
you
I
for
think the best way to get a hold of me, we'll do the quick rundown here. You see my name; it's on the front cover of the book. If you go to my website, which is myname.com, super easy, myname.com. It's not myname.com; it's brianpaone.com. Right? But people are like, I went to myname.com and nothing's happening. Um, but all 11 of my published novels are available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook worldwide. And my 12th novel comes out September 13th. Believe it or not, Fright Reads is the book release party to my mockumentary werewolf novel that is called Howlers.
That's
And you're
funny.
probably going,
That's funny.
gee, Brian, these Wall Still Talk just came out a week ago. How do you have a book release party for your next book already? Well, I wrote these Wall Still Talk almost a year ago. It's been sitting, waiting for the MSP event, right? So while the last year has gone by, I've written another book and it's ready to come out. So really quick plug on that. If anybody has ever seen This Is Spinal Tap, I wrote a novel about a fake werewolf movie from 1986 where I interview the cast and all the stuff that happens on set. So it's a comedy about a werewolf movie that was just a disaster as it was being made. And the werewolf movie doesn't actually exist. And it's based off of a soundtrack to this movie that doesn't actually exist. I actually teamed up with the band that wrote the soundtrack to this fake movie, and we kind of collaborated on it. So that's called Howlers. That's coming out September 13th at Fright Reads, where Analise's MSP Get Haunted movie is going to premiere. And Get Haunted is going to be there with little Annabelle. So if you guys are anywhere near the DC area or want to get on a plane and come or want to drive, Fright Reads Book Festival. I know it's got Book Festival in its name. That's because the guy who runs it, when he started it, he thought it was only going to be a book festival, but it has grown so much and he trademarked the name from the get-go. So now it's still called Fright Reads Book Festival, but it's everything horror. There's movies, vendors, books, just cosplay. It's a huge thing. So Fright Reads Book Festival is going to be September 13th and 14th. And that's going to be a massive event. It's going to be super, super fun. So it'd be awesome if people came out and watched Annalise's movie on the screen and hung out with Get Haunted and hung out with little Annabelle. And I'll have the DeLorean there. The DeLorean will be next to my booth where people can sit in it for photos. Heather Graham, the author who was at the Supernatural soiree for Get Haunted, is going to be there. We just have lots of people that a lot of people here know are going to be at Fright Reads. It's usually my biggest event next to AwesomeCon every year. So, and that's where my new book drops. So I just came out of a book release party and now I'm getting ready for the next one and then off to the Ditto House. So
Granzer had one last question.
yeah.
You both mentioned the movie that you love, our influences. Do you have any books that have influenced you? Book recommendations.
Me?
So
Everybody knows my answer. I mean, most people do.
mine's really quick. I read a lot of Goosebumps growing up. That kind of that those are like the childish ones, right? But like I read those a lot as a kid and I loved them so much. So those kind of definitely influenced my love for horror and like watching horror movies and like storytelling, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Stephen King. I know it's cliche, but Stephen King was when I realized that you could do this, like that this was a profession.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I love Stephen King's novels, especially The
yep.
Shining.
And the Dark Half was my first Stephen King book I ever wrote. The Dark Half was my very first Stephen King book. It's not a book that gets a lot of attention. People don't tend to talk about it. There was a movie made. People tend not to talk about the movie, but The Dark Half in my brain is why I'm an author, because that was the book that made me go, holy shit, I can do this. No, Heather Graham, the author who uh, was at the Get Haunted Supernatural soiree. She's a paranormal mystery author. So everyone, that happens a lot. Heather Graham, the actress, no. If you look up Heather Graham, the author, she's a New York Times best-selling author. So in the paranormal.
All right, if you guys want to hang backstage for a minute, I'm gonna close the show out, and I'll be with
Okay.
you guys in a few minutes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming on tonight. And we'll see you in a few minutes. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and always stay safe, stay humble. Remember, if you're being bullied in the paranormal field, you have a voice. Feel free to reach out to us. We'll listen. We're not going to turn you away. So, everybody, God bless. Have a good night. And we will see you all next week. Same time, probably on Saturday again. All right. Talk to you soon. Stay safe.